probably the towering event culturally in gaming with the longest lasting impact that happened this year. The little thing, yeah, towering. Set it up right, because
you don't have the stand. You don't have the stand. You got to buy the stand.
That was a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. The PlayStation 2 released in 2000. Holy cow!
Yep.
The best-selling video game console of all time. Over 150 million of them out there, active for over 12 years. Kind of an incredible piece of machinery, and at the beginning, there was nothing to play on. Well, there was a lot to play on it.
It was a DVD Trojan horse.
That was it, exactly. Please expound.
Just so DVDs were just starting to come into the mainstream to replace VHS, but DVD players were super expensive, like so expensive that they were more than the PlayStation 2. You know, again, younger viewers. Sort of same thing kind of happened with PS3 with Blu-ray, except we ended up with the HD versus Blu-ray war, the Blu-ray won, and then there was digital anyway. But it was the stakes were way higher. With PS2 in 2000, where Sony had they were gonna get PS2 into people's homes because it was the cheapest DVD player that you could get, and it was going to give you Toy Story graphics.
Yeah, and those Toy Story graphics. That's an emotion engine. Yeah, they promised a lot, but they also, maybe not what they promised. But they delivered
a lot
quite a bit
in terms of software.
Yeah,
in terms of the actual visual fidelity. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was still better than the other things that we had at the time, but it
Well, that first year, again, I mentioned this. Okay, so there were 29 games around launch for this thing, but none of them were good.
No, I will fight all of you on this.
No, what do you got?
Okay, so legitimately and not joking, SSX was a great game.
SSX was okay.
SSX, no.
You love SSX. Tell us why it's great.
SSX was a great snowboarding game.
Okay.
I do like 1080 better, and like some of the other ones. I was big into snowboarding games, but SSX was a very approachable, very pretty with lots of nice vistas, snowboarding game. But I think we all know that, despite what you have to say, the best launch game in history is on the PS2 launch, and that's the puzzle fireworks simulator. Okay. Fantavision.
You gave us all that to build up Fantavision anyway. So why don't we talk about why this is awesome? First, you could play DVDs on it. That was a big deal. Yeah. Second, it helped broaden the DVD standard. I mean, honestly, this thing probably did as much for DVD sales for a decade as anything ever did. Yeah. It was affordable, it was powerful, and when people did get their head around it, you want to talk about a library. Final Fantasy X, Shadow of the Colossus, Metal Gear Solid 3, God of War, San Andreas, GTA 3, Vice City, Kingdom Hearts, on and on and on and on. I mean, this is one of the most fertile playgrounds for software ever developed.
What was the game? Was there a killer app for each of you guys? What was the game that made each of you guys buy a PS2
Well,
I didn't. I was a Nintendo kid. Sorry, I didn't.
Okay, all right, good. I got one at launch because I just really wanted one. But the one that was just like a lightning rod for me was the original Devil May Cry. When the original Devil May Cry came out, I lost my mind.
I was a longtime holdout, but I had to find out what Shadow was all about when I heard people talking about it.
Oh yeah.
For me, it was Grand Theft Auto 3. A buddy of mine brought it over, and it changed. I was completely blown away by what Grand Theft Auto 3 did, and then I had to have a PlayStation 2.
It was a game from the future.
Yeah, it was.
It was a game from the future.
I was a Nintendo kid, but I had the benefit of living up in the suburban lifestyle where my best friend down the street had a Sega console growing up.
Cross-pollinate.
And then my other friends down the street got a PS1, and so when they got the PS2, it was just like, oh, you want to come over and play Perfect Dark? Okay, I'll come over there and see what you got. And,
absolutely.
Well, you got no games, well, I guess we'll just watch some movies, I guess. But they did have some great things that made it really hard to be in that console fanboy war in the playgrounds, because it was really, they had some really good titles. I mean,
it just kept going.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh my gosh.
I was just like, man.
Well, and the PlayStation 2 sort of, in a way, I mean, it was already in development, but we kind of wouldn't have an Xbox without the PlayStation 2, because on my show, Unlocked, I had the 3 Xbox bosses on there. Seamus Blackley, the creator, Peter Moore, who came after him, and Phil Spencer now. And Peter Moore talked about how, like, part of the whole thing with Xbox was to keep Sony from taking over the living room.
Yeah.
Between this thing and the Dreamcast, which was kind of their little playground for fooling around with ideas, both of those contemporaneous consoles had a lot to do with Microsoft blasting into that market.
Yep.
And we owe the modern gaming space that we have right now was created largely by this.
Absolutely. Like one last thing I did want to add on the PS2 is because, like, you know, where the PS1, a lot of games came out that started pushing video games into the mainstream in a very big way, and because of that momentum that they built with that, the PS2, I remember this, like when it came out, the PS2 was the first console that was like a technological lust object for people outside of the gaming space. Like, people were like, "Oh, did you see it? Did you hear about it? Did you get one this Christmas?"
Look at that design, that upright or vertical or horizontal, and that blue LED. I think that sold as many of these as anything ever did.